industry. This week on Project 254.
Hapa Riverdex nafanya kazi ya kutrim, kutoa uzi yenye itakani kwa nguo.
Tuko na uwezo wa kutoa kilo 3,000 kwenda 4,000 ya uzi, ikitegemea na kaunti ile tunarani.
Mimi hufurahia kutengeneza hizo miundo ambazo zinaenda kwenye shati za rais wetu.
Watch it on Thursday at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning and a warm welcome to Channel 1 News Check on this very special edition of News Check, the day being the 12th day of the 11th month. The year is 2020. Why is it special? Today we expect in the afternoon that the President of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, will be addressing both houses on the state of the nation. And actually, it's an obligation enshrined in the Constitution in Article 132 and also the House Standing Orders that require the President to actually make an annual State of the Nation address. Of course, this year will be different because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But last year and other previous years, the President has been addressing the state on the first quarter of the year. Last year, he addressed the nation on the 4th of April. And of course, there were not so many challenges as we have right now, and especially on the COVID-19 battered economy and other issues that have affected the country this year. Of course, there is also the Building Bridges Initiative report. That is a conversation we are going to be delving into in the run-up to the President's address later in the afternoon. My name is Njue. Simon Karuda is my colleague on the bottom right of your screen, and he'll be assisting us with the sign language interpretation. Of course, I will be having a panel of experts to delve deeper into what we should be expecting today. Of course, the previous year, that is the year 2019, the President, in his State of the Nation address, he talked about many issues, including corruption. Of course, the Building Bridges was just taking its baby steps, but of course, it was unveiled this year, last month. Of course, we will be talking about other issues. And of course, he also talked about devolution. Of course, so many things have coming up with the Building Bridges Initiative report that touch on devolution. So we will be having a very, very interesting conversation here. So kindly keep me company. I'll be telling you about my guest a little bit later, but 2020 has been a challenging year, and of course, some of the challenges the President is expected to be outlining them in the afternoon. Perhaps we can look at some of the defining moments of the year 2020. Of course, 13th March was on a Friday when Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, announced that the COVID-19 was here with us. That's when the country reported the first coronavirus case. And remember, from that one coronavirus case, now we have over 65,000 confirmed cases and over 1,000 deaths. Yesterday, the number was 26 souls lost, and that's a big number, being the highest number of coronavirus deaths recorded since March the 13th. And of course, the President will be addressing that as well. 2020 also has been a mixed year in terms of politics. Looking at change of House leadership, we did see some changes, especially in both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. Of course, a majority leader of both houses and also minority leader and chief whips and also deputy speakers. Also the same year, that was on June 2nd of this year, but also on September, something also defined the politics of this country was when CJ and the president of the Supreme Court, David Kenani Maraga, advised the president actually to dissolve both houses. Why? Because they had failed actually to pass the 2/3 gender rule in both houses. The petition was filed by 6 petitioners who actually talked about the 2010 constitution requiring that the country adhere to the 2/3 gender rule. Of course, that also came with a lot of mixed reactions, including annulment of 23 acts of parliament. That also has also stirred a lot of politics in the country and was also a defining moment this year. I'm hoping that the president will be addressing that. Of course, the judiciary and executive have had a bittersweet relationship. Remember that even the president did not ascend to 41 judges of the Court of Appeal that had been recommended by the Judicial Service Commission. Of course, on 25th of October, amidst pomp and color at the Bomas of Kenya, the BBI report was unveiled by the two BBI partners, President Uhuru Kenyatta and, of course, his partner, former Premier Raila Odinga. From when it was unveiled, all sections from the clergy yesterday to the Senate, to the Council of Governors, to County Assembly, to speakers, they have been talking about having a consensus. Some people talking about, even the people living with disabilities, talking about we also need this included in the final BBI report. That is also one of the most defining moments of 2020 that has characterized the year. And of course, definitely the president will be addressing the nation on the BBI initiative report. On 9th November, that is Monday this week, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, led by Haji, released actually a report on the status of prosecution and especially corruption cases, where over 200 billion cases involving over 200 billion are still pending in court. And of course, the president was very stern, talking about we should keep on the fighting spirit of corruption here in the country. Those are just some of the defining moments that we are expecting the president to be addressing the nation of the president today in his address. Of course, the president's speech will incorporate a number of issues. Some are expectations, of course, some are definite, because when we talk about the war corruption and the BBI, of course, they will be some of the agendas that the president will be looking at very, very keenly. But some of them is that the Building Bridges Initiative report, of course, the mounting pressure, because some people are talking about the report needs to be amended, this needs to be removed, this needs to be added, all the voices, so that we may actually come up with one document, one Kenya. Remember, the purpose of building bridges is bringing Kenya together. Of course, it was addressing a number of issues, but those are the key ones. The second thing, of course, is the national security and government administration. The COVID-19 pandemic has really hit the country, and the president, of course, even talking about government offices having to work on a very, very lean shift. Of course, he will be addressing that, together with the war on graft, as I had said, in the anti-corruption courts here in the country. Cases involving corruption of money, over 200 billion, as said by the Director of Public Prosecution, Haji. The war on COVID-19 is still on. Of course, a couple of months we were registering 2 digits. Now we are registering 3 or even 4 digits, over 1,000 people each day, and the number of deaths just keep rising. The Big Four agenda. When the president took his second term in the year 2017 after the general election, he talked about the Big Four agenda. And the Big Four agenda, including manufacturing and, of course, universal health care and others, have been hit also by the COVID-19 pandemic. So he will be giving us, we expect him to give us a status on the Big Four agenda in his speech today. State of the economy, not only Kenyan economy, other economies have been battered, had a big beating because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even other economies have had actually to literally shut down the economies so that they can be able to control the COVID-19. Billions. Of course, a lot of people have also lost their jobs or their sources of income because of this pandemic. 2022 succession politics, of course, we have seen them play out in some of the BBI meetings that have been there, and of course, people raising issues, talking about we have less than 2 years, we have BBI, and also we have the general elections in the year 2022. Political temperatures rising, we will also be looking at that. The public debt and also the ballooning wage bill. We expect some of these issues to be discussed today by the president while he addresses both houses today. And remember, not all MPs and senators will make it to parliament because of observing the COVID-19 protocols. So we will be seeing how this will pan out, but just giving you an insight of what we will be having on the show today. Of course, I'll be joined by two governance experts so that we may be able to delve deeper into the State of the Nation addressed by President Uhuru Kenyatta and some of the things or some of the expectations of Kenyans. Of course, our reporters are also on the ground to give us a picture of what Kenyans expect. As I had said, this is a different State of the Nation address in the midst or in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. We will be right back with our first interview. We'll be discussing, of course, all the things that have touched here on the State of the Nation address.
Article 132 of the Constitution and House Standing Orders obligate the President of Kenya to address a joint sitting of the Houses on matters that touch on national values. The State of the Nation Address is an annual constitutional requirement where the President is accorded the opportunity to address the nation on all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values. President Uhuru Kenyatta has in the past delivered the address between March and May. Last year, he gave the address on April 4th, where he briefed the nation on the progress his administration had made towards realizing his legacy-defining projects. He also dwelt on the war on graft, as well as the Building Bridges initiative. He pointed out further that there will be no turning back on devolution, as it was the answer to unequal development. This year's address had been delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The first case of the virus was reported in the country in March. In this year's address, the head of state will likely take stock of the Big Four agenda. The president may also root for the Building Bridges initiative vehicle, which he believes will deliver equity and national unity. President Kenyatta will also report to Parliament the measures taken to achieve national values, progress in fulfillment of international obligations, and state of security. In their communication to the Houses on Tuesday, Speaker Justin Muturi and his counterpart, Kenneth Lusaka, said the House attendance will be in compliance with the social distancing directives by the Health Ministry.
Welcome back to this special edition of News Check. Remember, today in the afternoon, the president is expected to make his State of the Nation address, and some of the issues that he will be talking about, of course, on governance, of course, on BBI, on devolution, on the Big Four agenda. But this is a special kind of sitting, because even if we start from two houses, not all MPs and senators will be allowed actually to be in the houses because of observing the COVID-19 pandemic protocols. And remember, the COVID-19 has also battered the economy, has also made the speech to be delayed. Mostly the president does the State of the Nation address in the first quarter of the year. Of course, many things we will be discussing today, and we will be having a look on what we expect the president to be talking about. Remember, we are live also on YouTube, on Facebook, and also on Twitter. Not forgetting our KBC app. If you don't have that, kindly download it so that you may be able to keep up with Channel 1 wherever you are, even on the move. Well, joining me on set, two governance experts, and perhaps to begin with my immediate left, we have John Simeka, who is a governance expert. Karibu sana.
Thank you, but I declined the name John.
Yes. So
let's stick with Simecha.
Simecha. Oh, yes. It's Simecha.
Yes.
All right, we have Simecha, yes. And on my extreme left, we have Madam Waringa Esther, who is also the founder. She is not only a governance expert, she is the founder of the Public Service Governance, yes. And also the president of that, right?
Yeah, it is.
Welcome. It's not your first time here. We have also discussed some issues on BBI with you, I believe.
Yes, we have.
Perhaps to start with you, we've had some slides there on 2020, the year 2020. Of course, the president will be talking about so many issues, including the BBI. Your feel on this special presidential?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. Yes, my name is Ambassador Esther Waringa, the founder and president of Public Service Governance. Today is a great day in the Republic of Kenya when His Excellency, the President Uhuru Kenyatta, will be addressing the nation. And I salute him for, well, it has been a tough year, a very difficult year, and actually, Kenyans today, we are expecting a full state of the economy address, touching on the COVID-19 mitigation, economic status of the nation. This is politics all around governance and service delivery issues in the country, challenges and fulfillment of devolution, Parliament, the Senate, the entire protocol of administration of the Republic of Kenya. So it's a hands full for the president, and I know Kenyans are highly anticipating a speech that we will see them move from point A to point B, and actually they are expecting also a speech that is going to breathe a little bit of life
and hope.
Yes. After being hard hit by COVID-19 negative economic effects. Number two, having been hard hit by a melting down economy. So what is the president giving today as a solution, as a breather, as hope to the people of Kenya? We are looking forward and highly anticipating for the speech today.
Simecha, yes. Of course, the president usually does this speech on the first quarter, but because of the COVID-19, it had to be delayed. What do you expect, or what is the feel on this special State of the Nation address today?
I think what's most important is to look at the purpose of that State of the Nation address. And I think the framers of the Constitution meant that the President, and as the Chief Executive of the nation, should be able to address the nation on how well or how badly we are doing on achievement of values, principles, obligations of the state, of the nation, to ourselves as Kenyans, as well as to other people in the international community, other nations, in our international obligations, that is. But sort of looking at a rear view mirror and saying, this is where we've come from, this is how well or how badly we've done with regards to what we say to ourselves we would do, particularly as we say in our Constitution and other instruments, but also having a futuristic look and saying, in view of these challenges, this is what we plan to do. So my expectation is that he can be very, bluntly honest, very, very bluntly honest, and speak about the challenges we've experienced as a nation. Speak about, of course, the achievements that we have, but this year has been particularly challenging. These challenges of this year came to a nation that already was grappling with other challenges, previous challenges. So only compounded these challenges with regards to chasing our national dream. So my expectation, my hope actually is that he would be very, very honest, brutally honest, and speak about these things realistically without necessarily seeking to just paint a positive picture. Yes, give hope, but also speak brutally, honestly about what challenges we have to expect, so that we go into the future, being very realistic and having tempered our expectations.
Indeed. And Ambassador,
Yes.
Looking at March the 13th, since when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country, basically around 8 months ago.
Yes.
Previously, the president, as Simeha has said, was grappling with a lot of challenges. And looking at his last year's presidential speech, he talked about his exact words on Building Bridges Initiative report. There will be no turning back on the Building Bridges initiative that assures inclusivity, cohesion, unity. That was President Uhuru Kenyatta. He also talked about devolution. Those are some of the challenges that the country was facing then, and the war on graft, which have been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
It's quite different.
Yeah, and unfortunately, actually, I must say that exactly these are some of the challenges that the country is facing right now. And that's why I'm saying Kenyans are waiting in high anticipation. What is the president bringing on board after a whole year, almost a whole year, battering COVID-19, acute economic meltdown, highly politicized service delivery? So what is the solution that the president is bringing on board? And yes, I hail him, number one. Yeah, he said that he's going to follow up BBI to the very end of implementation. But now the question is, yes, Your Excellency, it's good that we follow the BBI to the very end. But now the problem comes in. What is the solution that Kenyans are getting in this document called the BBI? What is the BBI bringing that is not in the Kenyan constitution? What difference is it making that will warrant 14 billion expenditure on a referendum? What governance solution is the BBI bringing on the table? Are we promised that after BBI is passed in the Republic of Kenya, that we will never fight again? We will never experience another ICC cases because of electoral violence, that we will never experience all bad IDPs in this country, that we will never be divided across political party groupings. What dossier is there in BBI that will make me as a Kenyan be convinced that beyond any reasonable doubt, I can be able to give a go-ahead on the BBI report? But allow me to give a brief analysis, specifically on the solution that the BBI is proposing on the structure of governance in this country. We are a country that has 44 tribes. So I'm asking my question. If we say that we are bringing 5 people in the executive leadership of the country, that's a prime minister, the president, the deputy president, the prime minister, and 2 deputy prime minister, is that going to give a lasting solution to the Republic of Kenya? And that is why probably some of the key people in governance are saying, are we able to sit down and dissect this document before even we think about going to a referendum? Because because it's very dangerous. If the economy right now that is hurting, spend another 14 billion to go to a referendum to pass a document that will not give a lasting solution to the political violence, highly divisive elections, expensive electoral processes, corruption. What is there in BBI that is going to bring corruption to an end? Have we seen morality in government? Have we seen what medicine or what dossier we are going to embrace as a country to be able to kill corruption forever? Have we seen that in BBI? And I want to say...
So BBI, with all due respect, BBI also the 9 issues.
Yes.
Corruption is actually one of the issues.
Yes.
And we expect, of course, other people have talked about beefing up.
Yeah.
And of course, you saw the report on corruption, 200 billion. Of course, we cannot say that the agencies are not working. 200 billion in a single year. I'm quite sure Yusuf Haji and his father Yusuf are quite proud of what he has been able to do.
Yes.
But perhaps to bring you in, Simeha, last year, the war on graft, he talked about devolution. So many things have also ended up on the BBI report. And some people have argued, first of all, we should implement the 2010 constitution to the letter, including the clergy yesterday. You expect the president to be touching on that as well?
Yes, I should hope so. I think for me, this was one of his boldest moves. The decision to enter into some kind of negotiation with his political opponent, his political rival, if you wish, Raila Odinga, who represents, tens of millions of people as well in this country. That decision that, okay, look, there are many, many ways of dealing with political contests. One of them is what the NASA had begun, which is, okay, we'll put maximum pressure on you to ensure that this country is ungovernable so that we can sit down and talk. That's one way, and countries do it. But you can also say, look, there are ways in which you do things, but they can be very costly to society. Can we do it in a different way? Can we talk instead? And I think for me, President Kenyatta's decision to say, and whatever he represents, to say, let's talk.
Yes.
That is one of the options we have. I think it's a very, very bold decision to make. Secondly, I think he has acknowledged many, many times that he has faced challenges, even him as a president, which he found very difficult to surmount. And even like the thing we're talking about of corruption, that it's systemic and it's so entrenched that unless something radical is done, he reached a point of saying, I mean, basically, I think expressing his frustration. And people better believe that you can be president and find it extremely difficult to rout corruption out of your own government because of its systemic nature and because of what I and many other people call state capture, that you can be a president sitting atop of a state that you're not in control of. And that's very possible. That happens in many countries. So I think it was to me a very bold thing for him to say, let's talk. And then secondly, to say, let's not just talk the two of us, let's involve the rest of the nation, other stakeholders, bring in through this process of the Building Bridges initiative. Imperfect as it is, I think again it's a bold thing to say it cannot just be in our hands, let's put it out there. The question you asked me about implementation of a constitution, of the Constitution 2010, I hear people speak about it, and to me, people speak about it as if it's an event or a project. Like the way you build a house, you complete it, and then you ask what next. Implementation of our constitution is a lifelong endeavor. We are not going to reach a point and say, now we have fully implemented. Let's look at the next project.
It will always be a process.
It's a lifelong endeavor. It's ongoing. It includes review of the same constitution, finding where there are gaps and sealing those gaps, continuously coming up with policy reforms, institutional reforms, administrative reforms, legislative reforms, all those plus our own behavior as citizens. When we behave in a manner that the Constitution expects of us, we are actually implementing that Constitution. But it is true, in my observation, that we have fallen short. This nation, we have fallen short. We could have done better in terms of living our own aspirations in this Constitution. We as citizens have fallen short. Government has fallen short the most, in my opinion, because of failure to demonstrate firm leadership, that The Constitution says that we have to do this. We must make every attempt. We will not get it perfect. In my opinion, this government of Honorable Kenyatta and Honorable Ruto, it has fallen short, regrettably, on implementation of the Constitution. But this is not a project that we say, let's not do anything else.
Yes.
Even where we see an opportunity to reimagine this nation, that we say, let that hold. Let's implement the Constitution. I think reimagining the nation, speaking to each other so that we can do something about our broken political and governance system is part of implementation of our Constitution. Acknowledging our shortcomings in governance and in the political system, in my humble opinion, is part of implementation of the Constitution. So I think we shouldn't, in my humble opinion, shouldn't speak about it as if these things are mutually exclusive. That the only way you can do something, for example, like the Building Bridges initiative, is to first reach a point where you feel like we have completed this project of constitutional implementation.
Yes.
Now let's go to the next thing.
And perhaps away from politics and the BBI report, let's focus on something that the President has been very passionate about, the Big Four agenda, talking about food security, manufacturing, affordable housing, and universal health care. In his last speech, he said, of course, he is firmly on the Big Four agenda. Then the COVID pandemic struck. Madam Moringa, how can you compare the Big Four agenda just before COVID and what we expect the President to be talking about today?
All right, I know the implementation of the four big agenda, number one, has been curtailed by the striking in of COVID-19, because probably the President was looking forward to this year, probably making some substantial impacts on the delivery of the Big Four agenda. Actually, if we look at the health sector, it has been adversely affected by COVID-19, and it's very good because some of these things are a blessing in disguise to the nation. We did not know how failed our health systems are until COVID-19 hit. Until even now, our health systems cannot comfortably be able to handle the COVID-19 patients. So I think number one, the President and his team of probably CSS has learned lessons during the COVID-19 process, even in terms of manufacturing. Little did we know that we can manufacture as simple things as masks. We have been importing almost everything, even a needle, a toothpick from China. Come on, the economy now must rise, and His Excellency the President now should be able to give us a speech that is promising in terms of manufacturing. Because if we see, when we see our youth full of the streets of Nairobi, that you try to make your way through, you can't. Because these youth are jobless, they are looking for jobs. But with the aspect of manufacturing, if the President is able to devolve the industrialization, devolve manufacturing sector, because in each and every of the 47 counties in this country, I'm sure there is usually a special either crop or other special projects. We have oil in Turkana. You go to Transmara, we have animals. You go to Northeastern pastoralists, they have animals. You come to Central Kenya, we are agriculturists. You go to Coast Region, we have the marine economic environment.
And also mining.
Yeah, mining in Western Kenya. So each and every block in this country, and those are the blocks that we are calling economic blocks, there are some special industries that we can be able to establish in these jurisdiction regions, so that at least we actualize devolution. I'm not sure that devolution has realized 100% of the aspect of the Big Four agenda, like manufacturing. We want to see industrialization in each and every of the 47 counties. What are the governors when they tell us in the BBI that we add them 35% of the country's income to the counties? What is this going to translate into results? Are we going to see industrialization now at another level? Are we going to see our youth now leaving Nairobi and getting back to their various areas at the county level, just because now there are job opportunities? So we expect that the President this morning will be able to give hope to the devolution of manufacturing. Okay, health is being taken care of because of COVID-19. What about food security? Let me say this, that since 1963, we have been giving relief food to the people of Turkana. Unfortunately, that even today, women still sit under trees in Turkana, waiting for food from the Kenya Red Cross and other donors. Food security. What solution is the State of the Nation address this afternoon, going to provide in terms of a country where we can actually be a food surplus nation. Why? Look at bananas in Kisii. They are sold until you get a whole bunch. I don't know what they call it. At 50 bob. Because the mismanagement of food production in the country. So what is the president going to give us in terms of food security in the country? You go to Nyandarua. When we see milk being poured out and
we've actually seen a lot of that, but I'm quite sure maybe perhaps the president will touch on this because also the youths are so jobless. Of course, let's first of all take a quick short break. This is News Check. Remember, you can send in your suggestion, your comments, or even your where you are watching us from as we wait for the president to make his speech. I'm actually calling it a special State of the Nation address. Let's take that break first.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Coca-Cola, taste the simple joys.
Article 132 of the Constitution and House Standing Orders obligate the President of Kenya to address a joint sitting of the Houses on matters that touch on national values. The State of the Nation address is an annual constitutional requirement where the President is accorded the opportunity to address the nation on all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values. President Uhuru Kenyatta has in the past delivered the address between March and May. Last year, he gave the address on April 4th, where he briefed the nation on the progress his administration had made towards realizing his legacy-defining projects. He also dwelt on the war on graft, as well as the Building Bridges initiative. He pointed out further that there will be no turning back on devolution, as it was the answer to unequal development. This year's address had been delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The first case of the virus was reported in the country in March. In this year's address, the head of state will likely take stock of the Big Four agenda. The president may also root for the Building Bridges initiative vehicle, which he believes will deliver equity and national unity. President Kenyatta will also report to Parliament the measures taken to achieve national values, progress in fulfillment of international obligations, and state of security. In their communication to the Houses, on Tuesday, Speaker Justin Muturi and his counterpart, Kenneth Lusaka, said the House attendance will be in compliance with the social distancing directives by the Health Ministry.
On KBC Channel 1.
The revival of Rivertex under President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda was a new dawn in the textiles manufacturing industry. this week on Project 254.
Hapa Rivertex nafanya kazi ya kutrim, kutoa uzi yenye itakani kwa nguo.
Tuko na uwezo wa kutoa kilo 3,000 kwenda 4,000 ya uzi ikitegemea na kaunti ile tunarun.
Mimi hufurahia kutengeneza hizo miundo ambazo zinaenda kwenye shati za rais wetu.
Watch it on Thursday at 8:30 p.m.
Two lionesses struggle to cohabit.
Because I'm not going to stand here and be compared to some...
Hey, Nancy, don't try me.
As the coastal vacation brings Nancy and Joe closer.
Nancy, you are full of surprises. What would you like me to do for you this morning?
Or will it be?
Now, can you give us some space?
No. He? Ni ushegati.
Watch your mouth, Mother Teresa.
Or what?
This game that you and Nancy are playing.
Na nyinyi mmekuwa akina nani kuingilia mambo ya wazazi wenu?
Stringed, making a comeback. Hotter.
Just gonna stand there and stare at us?
How do you think things will end up here?
This is a conversation between your father and I.
Sometimes it would be good if you would just stand your ground.
Wait. What happens between me and Mama Paul is none of your business.
Bolder.
You know Mama Paul is leaving you.
So what?
What?
I'm done being your puppet and dancing to your tune and manipulation.
We called the clients and told them that your purchase is done.
Only on KBC Channel 1. Fridays at 8:30 p.m. This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Wow! Congratulations, Atito. You know, I've always wanted to put on nanga, put on makeup. You know, things like those.
Very good thing. Atito, my friend. I thought you'll never find love after that, Joanne.
Please leave the bear out of this.
Okay, now I get this. You are married and you still have unresolved issues.
Julia, leave me alone, okay? Laugh if you must. Laugh, eh? Hata ukitaka kupiga duru, piga. Just don't let me see a fool in front of me.
Njue, who said I'm laughing? Okay, you people are so unfair. Why does everybody think that I do not care what happened to you guys?
Guess who the celebrity is? Atito.
Not yet, teacher.
Classmates, every Saturday on KBC.
Welcome back. This is a special edition news check where today we are expecting President Uhuru Kenyatta to make his State of the Nation address for the year 2020. Of course, being November is the first time that the speech is being read in the last quarter of the year. Mostly the president does that in the first quarter, of course, owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, we will be going to Parliament to see the preparations and, of course, some of the views Kenyans have and expect the president to be touching on. Of course, I'm joined by Joseph Simeha, who is a governance expert, and Ambassador Esther Waringa, who is the founder, the president of Public Service Governance. Before the break, we were talking about the Big Four agenda, and you didn't have a chance to touch on that, Bwana Simeha.
Yes, I think briefly, what the president came with the Big Four agenda, it appeared to me, my interpretation was that he feels frustrated. He feels that the experiment of the Vision 2030 and other, concepts for transformation, implementation of these concepts were meeting bottlenecks that he needed to sort of put them aside and focus on something smaller that he could, really be in good control of. And it does appear to me that then that interpretation was right, because eventually he has talked a lot about the frustrations he's faced in terms of the bottlenecks placed before him by the political system and especially corruption. Nevertheless, even after focusing on what he calls the Big Four agenda, I think I've still seen his government struggle, the Jubilee government struggle. As my fellow guest here was saying, this is an agenda that focuses on economic and social development. You would have been expecting that you begin to see some immediate results of this agenda, but they've been minimal. In all fairness, to me, the results have been minimal. It has not moved the nation to a place where you feel like, yes, something is beginning to happen. Because that's what people, and in all fairness, it's a legitimate expectations of citizens to look up to a government and say, okay, if you've come up with this agenda, let's begin to see the results. For example, I'll just pick one which is talked about. It hasn't resulted in any magic in youth employment. The situation has not gotten better, it has gotten worse. So I suppose the president and his deputy and their party, I suppose and I hope they also grapple with these things the same way we are doing about it on this set. It ran into trade winds even before COVID-19. COVID-19, in my opinion, has made it worse. Is it something that he is able to continue talking about and pushing, or does he need a rethink? I know they now have a very limited time in office, barely 2 years. Are they able to trudge on regardless and say that, we will still be able to achieve something? Look at just the housing aspect on its own. It doesn't seem to have been able to take off as they promised it would take off. Look at the manufacturing that she was talking about. We hardly, yet the capacity, I think the basic capacity, this nation has it. It is good. I also agree that this COVID-19 has taught us a lesson in terms of how we have neglected ourselves and our capacity for developing self-sustenance, such that we want to import each and everything. It's good that this COVID-19, good in quotes, has slapped us in the face and said that look within.
Yes.
Why don't you look within and do something about, come up with a list of essential goods and services that you must never import unless, I don't know, some calamity.
And perhaps to add on that, the COVID-19, and especially on manufacturing, now we are manufacturing our own PPEs, something a couple of months we were not able to do.
Yes, so that is just a confirmation, but we need to go a lot further.
Yes.
But it does need a very radical philosophical shift in terms of what development is. Development shouldn't be about people using opportunities, especially in government, for extraction, and therefore they import, they loot, they extract, and they put up high-rise buildings, and then we say we are developing. So it's something that should be, I should hope that is a wake-up call, that we need to be a lot more radical than the Big Four agenda. But is it possible? I see some kind of dysfunction of the political system that may continue to make it difficult, even if COVID-19 were to end by December.
Yes.
Unless this nation deals with the dysfunctional political system. Even if I think you bring another team in office, unless we deal with that problem,
yes,
I think we will continue to experience the setbacks we are experiencing, the frustrations, the lagging behind, and the running around in one spot. So I think it's going to take some boldness for us to unblock this dysfunctional political and governance system and say that, can we move, even where we are competing, can we move as a nation?
Indeed.
So I am not that optimistic with regards to Big Four agenda. I think something much bolder than that has to happen first before any other agenda then it rides on it.
Yes. Ambassador, do you concur with Simeha? Of course,
100%.
The Big Four agenda has been battered, but do we need to refocus? Because at the end of the day, we are also looking at the lost jobs and the jobs that were supposed to be created by the Big Four agenda. Do you think that the president should rethink in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, in the wake of COVID-19, actually, I had 100% agree with him that indeed we are experiencing failure to demonstrate firm leadership in this country. Number two, a dysfunctional political system that has politicized, including the Big Four agenda. And to a great extent, of course, we are hearing from the streets that has also politicized the BBI process, has politicized practically everything, including what is happening in Parliament, in both houses of Parliament. It's like everything we drink, we eat, we dress politics. So I highly agree with my friend Simeha that we really need to rethink, even before, what is the best way to execute the 4 big agenda? What is the best way to execute some of the BBI proposals? and in what platform that we should execute this. What governance platform? What governance structure? Because even if we move now and start executing probably some of the provisions of BBI, like the 35% to the counties, what accountability governance structures are there in place? Therefore, in this regard, we must think critically, and we want to congratulate Kenyans who are thinking 24/7 about what structure of government can we adopt as a nation. Initially, you remember, we had Punguza Mzigo. He tried his bit. And now we have the BBI. We are still trying to look at it and dissect it and see whether it's going to provide a solution. And in the organization that I am the president, we are proposing actually an election-free country, a public service system of government where we center everything on service delivery to the people of Kenya. A country where we will never talk about who am I going to elect. A country where we will never talk about which political party is going to govern or which political party do you belong. A country whereby we will never have elections at all in the Republic of Kenya, and we will be focusing on Big Four agenda 24/7. I wish His Excellency the President can come now to that realization and start envisaging a country free of elective competition, a country free from political party division, a country free from tribal division. Then that will be the most appropriate country to be able to implement the Big Four agenda. But believe me, as long as we are politicized, I mean, as long as we are going to this divisive electoral process, we will still have challenges in executing the Big Four agenda. And that's the biggest handle that the country is grappling with. And remember this, that even with the COVID-19, that is part of the health factor of the Big Four agenda, The COVID-19, already in this country, unfortunately, we have had corruption cases. People who have misappropriated COVID-19 funds. And to a great extent, I want to believe as an individual, as a Kenyan, that this money is going towards 2022 politics. And envisage a country where we did not have 2022 politics. Then we will be able to be much more accountable, much more responsible, and we will be able to be a country that is focusing on development 24/7. You recently, sorry, as I come to an end on this, recently we had the Senate that sat for almost, were they 12 sittings or 11? Yes. Trying to come up with one single revenue allocation formula. How much in terms of the economy did the 11 sittings translate to? How much did the senators spend to sit for 11 sittings? Yet, it is very simple. Development-centered economic formulas. Development-centered budget formula that we all need to know. What does Turkana needs at this point in time in terms of manufacturing, in terms of health, in terms of food security? Service-centered budget formula. So for His Excellency to execute the Big Four agenda very well and successfully, we must do away with general elections in the Republic of Kenya and politics in totality.
And perhaps, Semeha, to go back to the Big Four agenda, it was supposed to come up with jobs for the youth. In the last 8 months, we have lost so many jobs because of the COVID-19. How more can we look? Of course, the youths are expecting the president to be touching on something on them and perhaps on how they can be able to acquire jobs or how they can be able to better themselves in the wake of this COVID-19.
You know, I actually suspect that however evil the leaders of Jubilee may be, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto and their colleagues, however evil they may be, I actually suspect that they may wish to actually create jobs for young people in this country. I do not think, what I'm saying, I'm using extreme words to say, I am actually hoping that it's not deliberate that they decide, who cares, we will not do anything to create jobs for young people in this country and to grow this economy. I suspect it is a question of what I will say again and again and again, the failure of a political system, and to a big extent in issues of incompetence. Because if you have a political system that largely relies on patronage networks and so on, it makes it difficult for you to look at meritocracy as a priority. It makes it difficult for you to look at the role of institutions in nation building and in development. You really then you are forced to satisfy the demands that are within that patronage network or patronage system. Even worse when it's an ethnic patronage system, just like the president confessed himself at Bomas the other day, and saying that he confesses that he has been part of it. And I think it's a good thing for leaders especially to do that and say, look, I know that I've been part of the problem in this country. I do not think, I hold that contrary opinion. I do not think you can separate politics from what we call development. I hear a lot of people say that, let us separate. Let's stop politics and focus on development.
Yes.
I hold that you cannot separate those two, that the politics sets the pace. So the problem is not per se the politics, but the type of politics. That if you engage in the kind of pettiness that we engage in majorly in this country, if we engage in the kind of divisive politics that we engage in, grandstanding, competition and so on, if you engage in any time corrupt politics, surely you cannot expect an output that has value for you as a nation. A few people will benefit individually, but the nation cannot grow. Your economy will not grow. It doesn't mean that when a few people are getting rich out of extraction through a corrupt political system that now we are developing. So I think the issue is to, focus on what is wrong with our politics. Where did we begin to get it right? It could have been from the beginning. Maybe we never get it wrong, sorry. Maybe we never ever got it right from the beginning, from pre-colonial days. If we need to go as far back as that in this national conversation, we should be bold enough to say that and say that, no, let us uproot this colonial state and reconstruct the Kenyan state for the people of Kenya. Kenya as an African nation. Can we reconstruct the state? Can we reconstruct our politics? Can we come up with our own homegrown political system that then we use? My sister here is proposing one that doesn't have elections at all. I think let all these radical ideas compete. Let all these radical ideas come to the table and compete. There will be those of us who argue for the cardinal principle of representation, of free and informed choice, of participation in governance and so on, which therefore leads you to some kind of decision-making on who represents you, what kind of program you want to see, and so on. So therefore, you are forced to have a system where you can't do away with elections. But those are valid concerns that need to come to the table, that we need to have such radical discussion if we really truly hope to recreate the nation. But this patching up, a little patching up here and there, and talking about Big Four and this and that, a little donations here and there from individuals, it's just not going to work. It has to be something that unsettles us as a nation, completely unsettles us, and we say, okay, guys, this is it. So let us restart. That is how bad I think the situation is with our country. And if we can push ourselves to the extent of preparing our minds psychologically, step back from this political bravado, confront those who have captured the state, because they are powerful forces that you may even, as I told you earlier, you could be the president, you could be cabinet ministers, deputy, and so on, and you may find it extremely difficult to do certain things. You could be governor. You may find it extremely difficult to do things if you have a corrupt political system through which there are patronage networks that people benefit. You must stop and make a bold attempt to dismantle that, and then say, let's put something new, a new framework in place, and begin to build on that new framework. That is how bold I think this nation needs to be.
Indeed. And perhaps to shift focus to the judiciary, Chief Justice David Maraga on September the 21st did give an advisory to the president to dissolve both houses. And a week or two later, the High Court did annul 23 acts of parliament. And of course, the president will be addressing both houses on the same. Of course, a ripple effect after the cancellation or annulment of the 23 acts. Will you expect the president to touch on that?
Yes, highly. I expect the president to touch on that, because remember that parliament is one arm of the three arms of government. That means it's critical, and we should not ignore actually what came from the CJ Maraga. As the Chief Justice, I'm sure there is something that he had seen that really need to be corrected. And I actually back up my brother that, that let us not also ignore what came from the CJ. And immediately after the CJ, we had the what do we call them? They're running in my mind. Not the LSK. Yes, the LSK also
they
came on board.
Come in Parliament to ask MPs to vacate their offices because the Chief Justice talked about the House not being fully constituted because of the failure to pass the 2/3 gender bill.
Exactly. What followed after that again? The info track came in. Performance of members of Parliament, which was very low. So I think the CJ had already probably monitored and evaluated and so seen something need to be talked about. And as he says, as my brother says, Simeha, that let us not ignore these radical and great moves that Kenyans are bringing on board. You know, the worst thing is making BBI a private membership where you cannot allow any other Kenyan coming from Kibera, from Mathare, to be able to put their points across. You know, if you just put a hedge around it and protect it from any other Kenyan from bringing their ideologies, then we may not go far. And I agree with my brother who has just said that we need to seriously think of a homegrown solution to governance, because we have borrowed too much. And sometimes what you borrow from another, if you're a family setup, sometimes if you borrow too much from another family, it may not work with you if you come and implement it in your family. We are a Kenyan family. In our constitution right now, we borrowed so much from other countries, including our system of democracy. Our elective system is also borrowed. Why don't we buy and borrow and think critically, radically, our own homegrown solution to this country's governance? And yes, we can. When I, as the President of Public Service Governance, and we have been talking about Kenya Bila Uchaguzi Initiative as the third now from Punguza Mzigo BBI, now the Kenya Bila Uchaguzi Initiative, which already we have been cleared by IBC. We are now collecting signatures on the ground. To do what? To eliminate elections in totality in the Republic of Kenya. After doing what? After evaluating and monitoring the state of the nation in terms of electoral malpractices, electoral violence, electoral divisions, and all that, including, actually, during the launch of the BBI and Madaraka Day, His Excellency the President stated it very clearly that elections have become a problem in this country. Number two, the first BBI report, chapter 1 on divisive elections, indicated very clearly that elections have become a curse in this country. So, Your Excellency, why don't we find what my brother is saying, a lasting solution, a homegrown solution? Must we keep borrowing things that are not working in our own setup? Why don't we do a radical changeover, a radical surgery of our governance system? Can we pause for a while? Actually, instead of rushing BBI so fast, and then we get a cosmetic solution that will not see us through the next 5 years, that probably even the next electoral period after passing BBI, we may not have the solutions adopted and implemented. And why don't we pause?
To touch on that, Ambassador, you talked about we shouldn't be having elections in the country. How are we supposed to achieve democracy? And Kenya is a democratic country.
What has a beginning has an end. We don't have to be democratic 24/7 until we were born with this democracy. We don't want to die with democracy. Every other day we are evolving as a country, as an economy. We are evolving, and we have managed as a country to embrace evolution in technology. And embracing evolution in technology has taken us this far that even during COVID-19, there is that evolution in technology. We are able to communicate virtually and do important meetings. Even in State House, we have seen virtual meetings and very successful virtual meetings. Are we embracing evolution in governance, or we are holding on to the same democracy that we were born knowing democracy elections that have been divided? In fact, the youth of this country may know no peace during election, because since they were born, 1992, some of them know that after every 5 years, the country must be torn down. The country must suffer because of divisive elections. Maybe
and that is why we brought about BBI, of course, to bridge orders.
Do you want to tell me that bringing 5 people on board, expanding the executive, will bring a lasting solution? No. Allow me to say, my brother,
actually talking about, it's not talking about leadership alone. If you have read the over 200 pages, it's not talking about expanded executive alone. Of course, there is inclusivity, there is also ethos, bringing Kenyans together, which not only the 5 people.
Which is beautiful, but there is this what we call in strategic planning, looking or trying to establish the root cause of a problem. Because I salute the BBI, some of the provisions are okay, but in terms of bringing inclusivity and healing the country. I know the president is very passionate, and he is actually, every speech he is doing, and probably even today, we're expecting that you talk about divisive elections. But Your Excellency, what is the root cause of divisive elections in Kenya? Is it not divide and rule? Is it not me versus them? Is it not my majority versus their minority? How can we kill that as a country, as an economy, so that we move forward? Yes, we can be able to completely do away with what is ailing this country. Allow me to say, I'm a Christian. The Bible says that whatever you find probably that maybe hurts you in life, or whatever makes you to sin, cut it off. And the Bible says, if it's an eye that makes you to sin, chop it off. Therefore, elective system, since we borrowed from wherever it was imported from, has made this country suffer until our president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the deputy president William Ruto, Joshua Sang, and other great Kenyans of great honor have been at the Hague because of elective system of government. Why don't we possess a country? We are going to the Hague again because of divisive because of divisive electoral
want
processes.
To get into that, really, the debate at the moment.
Yes.
Let's kindly focus on exactly what we expect the president to talk about. And of course, talking about the 23 laws. Of course, it's a ripple effect for the whole country, and he is expected to address both houses, of which these laws were annulled because they did not meet the threshold.
You know, debate going in the direction is going is inevitable. You know, you begin to debate, and then you find yourself having to look at different dimensions and so on and so forth.
Let's not speculate. The violence and the violence and the Hague. Let's not start speculating on that for now. Yes, let's kindly keep it to what we expect the president to talk about today.
Yeah. Before you interrupted me, I'm just saying that I think you have always been prepared. No problem. That this nature of debate will always get into different dimensions for as long as we control it to ensure that we achieve what you intend to achieve with this debate, which I suppose is to inform your viewers on the various perspectives, including perspectives that are not so obvious. Sometimes, inevitably, in this kind of debates, perspectives come in that are not so obvious. They are not part of the normal. So it shouldn't surprise you. I think in terms of the judiciary, and I'm going to make a bit of a comment about this thing of elections, but if you permit, if I just speak about the judiciary, I think that is in order, because that is the role of the judiciary. You know, the judiciary, has to look at what all of us are doing. Is an arbiter. It interprets the Constitution for us. Yes. That is its role. In fact, particularly the High Court, that is its role, to interpret and see anything that we are doing, but especially public authorities. Are they doing it within the boundaries of the Constitution? And if they are not, or we are not, then it's their duty to strike down and give us a caution, however painful that is. And I think that is what they have done. It shouldn't even have taken the judiciary if we had reasonable members of National Assembly and a reasonable, well, in this context, in the context of what needs to be done between the National Assembly and the Senate. If they'd only exercised reason, we wouldn't need to go to the judiciary. But they have really forced the hand of the judiciary to say any law that touches on the welfare of people in counties, on devolution on counties, you are not going to be the only ones, that is National Assembly, to debate and pass it and purport to have made law if you exclude Senate. For God's sake, these two houses are two houses of one parliament. Two houses of one parliament. That's what we call a bicameral parliament, not parliaments. One parliament, two houses. Why does one house want to behave as if they are in a competition with the other house? So it's really about just being reasonable, exercising reason, looking at the Constitution, seeing what it says, and even if it's not really clear there, what would a reasonable person on the street do? You're not going to pass things to do with laws, for example, to do with money that touch on counties, to do with people that live in counties, to do with the registration of people that, it's not like counties govern different Kenyans and the national government governs another set of Kenyans. It's the same people. Actually, I think you are going to find it very difficult to find any law that doesn't touch on counties. You're going to find it very difficult. So why not have these two houses work together? This grandstanding by the National Assembly is what has pushed the Senate to go to the Judiciary. And I think the Judiciary has made a noble decision. It has sent a warning, do not proceed in that direction. Look at what the Constitution says, work together as a parliament working together for the same set of Kenyans. Now, on the proposals we put on the table, and my sister says that do away with elections, and elections are the cause of the evil we have in the country.
Yes.
I think there's an analysis you did, you know, just here as you were contributing. And to me, that analysis pointed to something I believe in. The elections themselves are not the problem. Our problems manifest during elections, during political competition. But politics is not a problem. Political competition is not a problem. Elections are not a problem. But the moment you have people who decide that they are more entitled than others, people who frame the issues of Kenya in terms of we versus them, people who frame anything in terms of what we are entitled to versus what they want to take away from us, and all that, which didn't begin yesterday, it began a long time ago. That is then what makes our elections, our political competition, and our politics a problem. So these tools, because they are tools of governance, I wouldn't blame these tools of governance. I would blame ourselves. I would say, can we, again, what I said earlier, can we sit down and face ourselves and agree that we've been doing it wrong, so that when we begin to use these tools of governance, including elections and other forms of governance decision making, not just elections, including consensus building and so on and so forth, that we are doing this as a new Kenya, sort of, if you like. People who have had to redefine themselves, redefine a national philosophy. What is it that we want to achieve as a nation? So that even when we compete, we do not find that competition does not turn into a disaster. I think the reason we have things like elections and consensus building is because of the inherent inclusion of dignity in those kind of things. Because I think when you talk about free choice, you're talking about human dignity. If you look at the concept of plurality, that you don't just force people to have one thing, where they can choose, they can have options, I think it has a huge thing to do with the principle of human dignity. So there are tools we now use, we've gotten used to, and I think they're important for human dignity. We can retain those tools, but we can take a step back and dig a bit deeper and uproot, one, what was imposed on us by the colonial system, but two, the attitudes that we built. Yes, the foundation is in the colonialists because they wanted to divide us. But there are people who then took advantage. You know, sometimes we can plant something here. Momentarily, you look at it as something advantaging you against her, or advantaging me against the two of you. Tragedy is if I decide this thing seems good for me, it seems to work for me, let me continue with it. That's where tragedy lies. Instead of stopping and saying, okay, we got rid of these colonialists, they gave us this system, momentarily it seems to favor me as Simecha, can we stop, dismantle it, and put in place something that is for the three of us? Instead of me pushing ahead, just because I know that for now, it's momentarily giving me an advantage. But what future am I building? Because, you know, beyond the three of us, there's going to be those who come after us. Yeah, so basically, I think every time we make this analysis of what's wrong with Kenya, I think we separate the foundational problems, the root problems, from what we see manifesting as the problem.
Of course. Yeah. And Ambassador, of course, the President will be bringing in the devolution debate. Last year, he talked about devolution is here to stay. We are going to strengthen devolution. And of course, the BBI, one of the things it's supposed to do is to strengthen devolution, of course, from funds to other raft of measures that have been recommended, and also the input that has come in from all sectors. Other people are talking about let's add this, senators are talking about yes, let's strengthen devolution, and also the governors. It's a debate that the President will be joining in today.
Yeah, it is. And I must say that actually devolution is one of the most powerful structures of governance that we embraced as a country, because devolution initially was aimed at bringing services to the people. That's one. Number two, it was aimed at bringing the power to the people. And number three, self-governance. We expected to see Kenyans much more involved in governance, like what we are calling today from our constitution devolution here, participation, there's the way we put it, yeah? Yeah, public participation, yes. Yeah, it also brought in public participation. Unfortunately, even before I go that way, that we have even politicized devolution, let us look at the impact since we embraced devolution.
Yes.
I said there earlier that actually the devolution structure was the best ever structure to execute the Big Four agenda. And if they were able, the governors and those leaders at the county and constituency level and award the levels, if they were able to embrace the Big Four agenda and execute it away from politicizing it, I'm sure today we could have had very positive results. We could have had our youth now leaving the streets of Nairobi and going back to their rural areas because devolution has worked. But unfortunately, what are we seeing every day? What we are seeing every day is a rural-urban migration.
Yes.
Nairobi is full. I think even our general, Mr. Mohammed Badi, has a lot to do in this county because it's like Nairobi is now hitting what? 4 billion, am I correct? 4 billion in terms of population?
4 million.
Sorry, not billion, but million, yeah. 4 million in terms of population. What a big number in terms of development and the Nairobi geographical space. That means devolution is beautiful. But governors, what the president should do must be able to ensure that there is accountability, responsibility, and to a great extent, the budgets that are going into county, we would like to see much more evaluation, monitoring of what is happening in terms of the money that is going to county. How much is it translating into projects, programs on the ground that are benefiting Mwananchi? But unfortunately, when we see now about how many governors have been mentioned, with the 200 billion recently that have been misappropriated, I think we are hearing of about 7 or more governors that has been implicated in the same. And I would request that if devolution is to work for us now, that the DPP, and we congratulate him so far for the good work that he has done, even bringing us now this latest information about the money that has been appropriated. I request that now we touch the untouchables in this country, because unfortunately, even we were being told about these guys who misappropriated the COVID-19 funds. Yes, but because they are leaders, because they hold positions in this country, I don't know how far they are. But to the DPP, let us, if we are to win the war on graft, let us now touch the untouchables in this country. And to His Excellency the President, actually, recently he said that hakuna mtu ata mmoja. And he said categorically, don't think because you hold a very high position in government that we are not going to send you home. Your Excellency, it's time to crack the whip. Even in his speech today, we don't want to preempt, but objectively we are saying that please, let him give a speech that is going to give a very strategic and candid direction towards war on graft. And kindly, Your Excellency, let us touch the untouchables this time round. If COVID money has been appropriated, it's sending very strong signals. And we are going to the international domain for all wrong reasons. I believe that the state of address today will be able to cool down the temperatures on corruption cases and politics by the president giving strategic direction in devolution matters. And something else I want to say, that if ever devolution worked, today we could not be having some public schools learning under trees. Right now, the government is trying to employ strategies to ensure that our children go back to school in January. But because of graft, because of corruption at the county level, the money that we are sending, the 15% that we are currently sending to the county, that is enough and a lot of money to be able to see in full infrastructure development in schools. We want to see classrooms that are adequate for our 100% transition in education. But if we continue stealing money that is meant to strengthen devolution, how then are we going to achieve the fruits for this beautiful devolved system of government?
Yes, and perhaps to look at the economy, the state of the economy before the COVID-19 hit was still struggling. Kenyan economy was still struggling. We're also grappling with a very huge public debt. Do you think the president will address this objectively when it comes to the matters, wage bill, or perhaps public debt, and of course the battered state of the economy?
He should better, because as just from where we began, his address is supposed to, the Constitution obligates him to talk about what he and his government have done to achieve certain minimums that the Constitution provides for, in terms of like the Bill of Rights, in terms of values and principles of governance and of the nation, in terms of our obligations, his obligations, particularly with regards to social, economic and cultural rights, obligations of his government, and our obligations to, our international obligations to the rest of humanity. So inevitably, he has to talk about the economy. It is one area that one can sympathize with him, as I think it's been the running thread throughout this discussion, that even before COVID-19, it was a problem that he was grappling with, almost seeming not to know exactly what to do. And this is why these other dimensions that come into this discussion are important, because you may want to just stick on discussing the economy, but then find that you have very limited ways out. Why? Because the problem is beyond the mechanics of an economy. The problem is deeper than the factors of an economy. That the problem is the kind of things we've been discussing for almost an hour now, about governance, our political system, the type of society we are, and so on and so forth. Yes, I agree also that better leadership skills, competence and so on could make a difference. A better attitude and so on, a better vision could make a difference. But you may not succeed, I think, in the situation we find ourselves in as Kenya, if you isolate the economy and hope that perhaps something can be thrown at it and then it begin to improve. I will look forward and hope that he tells us something different from what he has been telling the nation for the last, I think this will be the 8th one, for the last 7 times since 2013, in terms of what he and his deputy and their government could do about the economy. On this issue of devolution, if I may just add 1 or 2 points. I mean, it's extremely important, but we have really failed ourselves on it. It's perhaps the jewel in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya from 2010 is really the jewel. But it's like we gave ourselves this, and the system is taking away from the people. When you consider just a number of things, one, as I said, a patronage system, a political system that gives people opportunities to mostly extract from public resources. It means it starves counties of resources. But also this patronage system doesn't stop at the national level. It goes all the way to the county level, where you have governance and their teams that literally steal. I will not even call it corruption. They steal from the people, but nothing is happening to them. For as long as somehow they are hooked into this system, even if it's temporarily, even if by use of certain inducements, it is like they will steal. People will put their evidence that this has happened, but they are still in office, and and we are not dealing with them in terms of accountability. So that patronage system, yes, the issue of borrowing, public debt that you bring up, extremely important, because that affects devolution, honestly. Because when we borrow, we must pay.
Yes. And
the first charge on the consolidated fund, on our money, let us just say the first charge on our revenue is debt. When you owe people, including us personally who owe, when you get money, the first thing you ought to do is to start paying what you... So when you pay, what are you left with? Even if we raise that minimum percentage for a meeting to counties to 50%. But what you have to share, if you raised, say, 100%, 60% has gone to paying for debt, and you're remaining with 40% to share now between national and counties. Even if you raise the percentage, it's still a pittance in terms of the money that is available to fund development at the local level. So yes, the public finance management, big issue that undermines, when it's not done well, as we've grappled with in this country, it undermines devolution. The other thing, maybe the last two, is just holding back. I mean, I'll only give you one example. Look at the Ministry of Health, the scandals that we are discussing on this set. Health is a devolved function. So you would expect that the most amounts of money, really that we put together for a health budget are going to the counties. And what you have at the national level is a strong team, a focused team, a team with integrity to provide policy leadership to do capacity building for counties, and also to help with oversight, to make sure that the counties are doing the right thing and set standards. But you have huge amounts of money still remaining at the center. And it's stolen in such a casual way. I mean, this KEMSA thing is, I don't know if we can even find the words to discuss it around this table. And yet it will pass, as other things have passed in this nation. Unfortunately, those and many, many others are some of the things that unfortunately seriously undermine devolution. So we must look beyond percentages. Sometimes, you know, if you just throw around percentages, they may look very interesting, but they may be a shell, a percentage of a shell. So we must look beyond 15, 35, and so on, and look into all these other challenges that undermine devolution. If you maintain a huge provincial administration system, it undermines devolution, honestly. Devolution has to do with building capacity for self-governance. And that you don't do by devolving the center, taking the center, say administratively, and having this system replicated from the national level to the lowest level. You devolve power, you devolve resources, you devolve decision-making and so on, so that we can build capacity for governance decision-making and capacity for self-development, that we can build capacity to talk about manufacturing, to talk about job creation and so on at county level, that these are counties creating. Hopefully a future president should like, I hope, should like that we Kenyans, or those who will be there, inshallah, will not be pointing fingers at him or her, but we will be looking at their county, how well their county is doing in terms of providing all these things we are talking about.
Indeed. Ambassador, you wanted to add something on the state of the economy. Of course, it was battered even before the COVID-19.
Especially the wage bill, yes. The wage bill is quite high. And okay, thank you to those who connived the BBI agenda. But when we talk about adding representation or increasing the numbers of those that have been represented Wajiko in Kenya, for example, that the BBI has proposed doubling, of course, the number in the Senate, and 70 members of parliament, of course, have been added to the current team. And currently, I must say that right now, the president's big headache is the wage bill. In fact, it would have been much more better for him to execute the Big Four agenda with a reduced wage bill. Now tell me, if we increase representation, if we add more people to the Senate, leaders to the Senate, if we again create more 70 constituencies, that is increasing the wage bill. Are we going to have any money left for the Big Four agenda? Which the Big Four agenda to me is what will now drive this economy and up to the GDP. But when we add more seats to the current already bloated team of representation, then we are reducing on the GDP. We are now denying our economy growth, because what we are going to do is that we are now going to increase the government recurrent expenditure in terms of paying elected representation. So I'm not sure that that is the right way to go for the country. So in the terms of the economy, any country to measure its economic growth, it's not about how many members of parliament you are adding, or how many governors you are increasing, or how many members of the county assembly you are bringing on board. It's about how much money, how much stable the country is in terms of manufacturing, food security, health systems. That is what we talk about, growth of an economy. But when you're telling us that you increase elected representation, the economy definitely is going to collapse. And right now, we are going through very hard economic times as a result of businesses closing for almost 8 months. And immediately after 8 months, we have here a document that is increasing the number of representation. That is why I must request that that document must be open for further more discussion. And I agree with my colleague here. Let us table things here without covering up some of these issues. Because if we cover up, we are going to, pass it, but 2 years down the line, the economy will collapse again. If we continue increasing the representation, already the tight economy, how many families are sleeping hungry in this country? Many. How many roads are not done? I saw some farmers complaining in Nyandarua County because of poor roads. They cannot be able, not that we are against anybody, any governor, no. But we are discussing the state of the country's economy. We want to see roads done. We want to see our farmers having good infrastructure to be able to transport their agricultural produce. But when we add more representation, increasing the salaries and increasing allowances and the wage bill, then we are depriving the country the money for economic sustenance and sustainable development.
Yes, and perhaps to have a feel of what parliament buildings are like, our reporter Safina Chieng Oma is outside the parliament buildings where we expect the head of state to address the nation from. And Safin, kindly give us a feel of parliament today.
Thank you so much, Ben, Troy, Njue. Of course, we are coming to you live from the Parliament buildings right here in Nairobi. We are standing just right outside the gate that is leading to the Senate chambers. And this is ahead of the much anticipated State of the Nation address by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is set to be addressing a special sitting of both the National Assembly and the Senate this particular afternoon. This is under obligation by Article 132 of the Constitution that mandates the head of state to address such a special sitting on the progress that has been made in the meeting of the national values and the progress made in achieving the national values in the country, and of course what we are doing in terms of assisting the country to meet her international obligations. And of course it is something that the president usually does around the month of March to May, but this time around it's actually different owing to the COVID-19 outbreak in the country, because it's coming in the month of November. Today is the 12th, actually at around 2:30. That's according to a Gazette notice that was issued on Friday last week by both the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate. The president is expected to be making this special address at around 2:30 in the afternoon. It's slightly under 17 minutes under 12, so it should be about 2 hours and 30 minutes from now. The head of state should be doing that, but he will arrive, I believe, a few minutes before 2:30, and what we understand from what we've gathered is that he will make his way to the Senate chambers before going into the National Assembly main chamber. That is where he will be making his address this particular today. Now, of course, a lot has been done in adherence to the COVID-19 precautionary measures. It is a sitting that usually attracts about 400 plus members of parliament, but this time around an invitation was sent to only about 100 plus, so it is restricted so that they could achieve what is known as the social distancing. And of course inside the main chamber, the National Assembly, only a few members of parliament will be allowed in, but others will be following the proceedings from tents that have been erected just outside, and a big screen has been mounted for them to be able to follow the proceedings as the head of state will be making his address. But security is tight, like is usually the protocol everywhere the head of state is going. What we have witnessed is just they're cross-checking every corner to ensure that everything is in place. And of course, not just security this time around, an added responsibility to ensure that the COVID-19 safety protocols are adhered to. So right now what is happening is just some members of parliament and the senators are making their way into this particular place ahead of the arrival of the head of state for his State of the Nation address that will be happening later in the afternoon. A lot is expected. Of course, it's an address that is coming at a time when a lot is happening in the country. Of key significance is the COVID-19 outbreak in the country. It's been 7 months down the line, Troy, since Kenya reported her first case of COVID-19, and we have seen the cases rising by the day. Right now, we are close to 70,000 positive cases of COVID-19, and so many people, over 1,000, have lost their lives courtesy of this pandemic. But we've seen a lot of actions being taken by the government, not just to flatten the curve in the country, but also to cushion Kenyans against the economic downturn that affected this particular nation, courtesy of the restrictions that were put in place during the spread of COVID-19. So as expectations remain high, we believe that what will form part of the president's address this particular afternoon, of course, will center around COVID-19 management in the country and how to sustain the economy during this pandemic, and of course what his administration has in store for economic recovery post-COVID-19. We are also having this expectation at a time when we just, witnessed the unveiling of the BBI report just the other day. And of course, conversations centering around building bridges, centering around achieving unity and working together as a nation and putting together our political differences, sort of like a way of achieving political, stability in the country. So Building Bridges Initiative report and some of the proposals contained therein will also form part of the President's address, as we just expect to see how this is going to achieve the new dawn that has been promised for Kenya. Of course, also he cannot complete his address without touching on the progress made in the realization of the Big Four agenda under his administration. So also that may take center stage. But we are here just putting a close eye on the activities and the developments that are coming forth. So we will be giving you regular updates on what is happening. So right now, still, it's just arrivals by the members of Parliament and the senators who are invited for this special sitting. But of course, we expect that when the president comes, he will be, of course, walking towards the parade that is going to be mounted in his honor. And of course, after that, he will make his way into the Senate chambers, and then briefly after, he will make his way into the main chamber of the National Assembly for the much-awaited State of the Nation address. We'll be giving you regular updates, like I said, concerning what will be coming forth from the Parliament buildings today. For now, it's back to you, Troy.
Achieng' Ouma, she is live from Parliament buildings, and as she has alluded to, that some of the MPs have already made their way to Parliament. Remember, not all MPs will be able to attend the session because of the COVID-19 protocols. And of course, she has talked about all the COVID-19 protocols being observed and security beefed up. From Safin Achieng' Ouma, we now connect with our reporter Achola Simon, who is in Kisumu, to have a feel of how things are and the expectations of today. Achola?
Well, thank you very much, Ben, Troy, and Njue. Of course, there are a number of issues that will always trigger expectations from Kenyans, especially when President Uhuru Kenyatta is talking. And of course, Kenyans will be expecting to be addressing some of those issues. And I will not be far away from the target when I say that Kenyans will be expecting President Uhuru Kenyatta to actually talk about corruption. And given that at this point in time, we're actually in a devastating pandemic, it is also widely expected that probably the President will be addressing some of the key issues surrounding COVID-19, and of course how the government is actually going to tackle the issue moving forward. And the other thing, of course, we know for a fact, quickly on top of our mind, is that the president might actually also speak about BBI. But of course, those are what we as people in the media are actually thinking that Kenyans might be thinking President Uhuru Kenyatta will be talking about. It's only wise that we actually talk to some of them so that then we get to understand exactly their thoughts and what they think of what President Uhuru Kenyatta will be addressing this evening. So we have this gentleman who is with us here. You will kindly tell us your name and tell us what you expect from President Uhuru Kenyatta this afternoon when he addresses the nation.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Kevin Ouma huyo mkaji wa Kisumu. Ningependa sana kama leo rais atakuwa anazungumza aguzie mambo yenye tunatukumba sana ya ufisadi. Aweze kuondoa wale viongozi wenye wamehusika na mambo ya ufisadi ili tupate hata kama sisi vijana tunaweza pata kazi. Mambo ya pili, ningependa sana rais
kabla uende kwa jambo la pili. Mambo ya ufisadi. Hii ni swala ambalo limezungumzwa sana na rais. Pengine leo ungependa alizungumzie kivipi? Atueleze watu ambao wameshikwa, ama atueleze mikakati ambayo ameweka kuhakikisha watu wanashikwa, ama alizungumzie kivipi?
Tungependa sana rais kama anazungumzia hii mambo, hao viongozi wenye wamepatikana wanahusika na mambo ya ufisadi waweze kutekeleza wazi ili tujue ni akina nani. Alafu sana mambo ya pili ni hiyo mambo ya BBI. Sisi pia kama vijana tungependa at least tujumuishwe tupate venye tunaweza fanya kazi kama BBI itakuwa imepitishwa katika bunge la eneo tofauti.
ile ripoti ambayo imetolewa tayari kuna mambo kadha. Kwanza nikuulize, umesema umeweza kupata nafasi ya kusoma BBI?
Nimesoma kidogo, lakini
na pengine tu kwa sasa utueleze nini haswa inakupendeza katika ile BBI na ni maeneo gani ungependa sana rais agusie?
Maeneo kama ya tuseme kama governor. Hii nini ya governor anapokuwa mwanaume vice wake tungependelea iwe venye walisema ikuwe wa kike.
Okay. Shukrani sana. Bila shaka tutakuwa tunaangalia rais tujue anazungumzia yapi na iwapo kama atazingatia ile mambo ambayo umesema. Huyo ni Evans, of course, one of the residents here telling us what he expects President Uhuru Kenyatta to be talking about. We also have another resident here who will introduce himself and actually tell us what he expects from President's address this afternoon.
Kwa majina naitwa Engineer Patrick Owino. Mimi ni mwisho hapa Kisumu.
Engineer, hebu tueleze tu kwamba rais atakuwa anatarajiwa kuhutubia nchi leo mchana, na pengine tu tueleze kwamba kama wewe ni Mkenya, pengine matarajio yako ni yapi akizungumza, aweze kulenga sekta ipi na ili kuhakikisha kwamba nchi hii inasonga mbele?
Sana hii mambo ya night travels inakaa kama watu wamefinywa sana juu ya hiyo traveling, because most of the travelers people do by night and then they work by day. So hiyo tunataka afungulie sisi hiyo, because hiyo I don't see hiyo link ambayo iko nao na COVID. Yes.
Kando na hiyo night curfew, what else are you expecting President Uhuru Kenyatta to actually address?
Yeah, mambo ya shule pia, because unaweza pata most of the colleges, even schools, it's just that they have not been testing, because if you start testing most of these colleges and schools, you find a lot of corona inside. Yes. So those issues can be addressed well, because now it is kind of dragging and
probably swali la mwisho tu nikuulize, umeona wakati wa awali ambapo rais ameweza kuzungumza ama kuhutubia nchi, tumeona kwamba ameweza kuzingatia sana upande wa ufisadi na akasisitiza kwamba wataweza kufanya kuchukua hatua. Wewe kwanza, kwa mfano kama engineer, umeona kwamba pengine swala hili limezingatiwa? Na pili, tukisonga mbele itakuwaje ndio tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba yale maneno ambayo rais amesema basi yanaweza kuzingatiwa?
Sasa vile nilisikia hata jana kuhusu zile vitu ambazo zilikuwa zimenunuliwa for COVID, they were bought at very high prices. Now, if the organization has decided to reduce the prices so that wananchi can get access to them, I think it is better, because even schools are suffering, because some of the students cannot afford to get these COVID things. So if the government can reduce hiyo bei ambayo inachukuliwa from hiyo nini the manufacturers, they can reduce the prices so that students can get access to these things.
Shukran sana bwana engineer. Of course, those the sentiments of the locals here in Kisumu County, giving varied reaction or expectations of exactly what they expect President Uhuru Kenyatta to address, especially when he addresses the nation this afternoon in the State of the Nation address. One key issue that is actually coming out strongly then is a factor that there's need to actually look at how the country moves forward, especially in these times of COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the residents here, of course, lamenting the fact that the government has actually imposed night curfew and especially night travel bans, and of course that, he says, is taking a toll on local on wananchi who actually like traveling at night. Of course, those are some of the issues we will actually be listening in and to get to understand if indeed President Uhuru Kenyatta will be addressing. So one key other issue that has actually been talked about is the issue of testing students. This is a question that actually raised when the CS of Education Magoha and of course the PS visited this region, and the question we actually raised at that point in time was why the government has actually not tested students before they allowed them back to school. So of course this is an area we'll be listening in keenly to get to understand moving forward what the government will be doing in terms of ensuring that indeed those the students who are actually going back to school are actually tested or not, and what plans they have in terms of ensuring that we fully reopen schools in this country. Back to you, Ben Troy, Njue.
Thank you, Achola. Simon from Kisumu, of course, sampling some of the views and expectations of residents of Kisumu. And because of the interest of time, perhaps a minute each, as we wind up, the BBI report has been on the lips of everyone, and even some quarters are talking about what is there for Wanjiku. Joseph, kindly.
I see, unfortunately, a lot of distortions and a lot of misunderstanding on exactly what it is, exactly on what people are going to, if it proceeds that way, to vote on and so on. First of all, the report contains so many proposals or recommendations for reform grouped in 4 areas. That is policy recommendations, constitutional recommendations, legislative and administrative. But people talk about the report as if it's the report they will vote on. Yes. That's not true. It's just one aspect that has been talked about in terms of a constitutional amendment bill, which has been annexed there in the report, and that is what would end up going to a referendum. But there are many, many other proposals that have to be implemented through, policy processes, legislative processes, administrative processes. When we get completely consumed by just one aspect, then we miss out on having a robust national discussion on these other recommendations that are in this report. Secondly and lastly, is this political, again, bravado, this grandstanding, and do we add, don't we add, do we open, do we close, do we do this, do we do that? Yeah. I find some sincerity in people who are saying that we made these proposals and we haven't quite seen them well reflected, and we think it's an extremely important issue. But there's a difference between those ones and those who have sprung up. Initially, they completely opposed. They rubbished, they insulted, they said this is nothing. And suddenly they say now, okay, stop, give us a chance to say something. Yes. I don't find those ones sincere. But I find sincerity in those who have been part of the process, even if they had misgivings. It's not, because I don't think any process like this, you must demand that people must support it unconditionally. I don't think that is right. It is fair for people to support and question at the same time. Yes. And say that, okay, this looks like something good, but I have this issue, I have this issue. Okay. Those ones, I think there's sincerity. And I should hope that there has been some kind of listening and consultation going on. But the ones who are doing political grandstanding, when they have dismissed the process and rubbished it, yes, I think there's a limit to patience. Okay. Yeah.
Ambassador, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Kenyans should embrace themselves, and even not only Kenyans, even the leadership, and to the people who are now bringing the BBI to the people, that we must embrace patience. Because if we don't embrace patience at this point in time, we are going to pass a document that is not going to address the root cause of all the problems that we are going through as a country in terms of national ethos, ethnic antagonism, divisive elections. If we launch the document and embrace it, then we may not have embraced the real issues that we would like to address. Therefore, we request open up. Let us have much more discussions. Let us have inclusivity of different and various groups that really want to hear, to see their proposals being part of the proposed BBI. Because as we talk right now, many groups, as he says, are like, our proposals have not been factored in the document. So how do we pass it? And equally also, we want to see a document that is addressing the Roko Mwananchi issues in terms of economic sustainability. But yet we have not seen. So we need to open up the BBI. Let every Kenyan understand the document. And with that now, we request that more time be given for this document to be fully diagonized and dissected and embraced.
Thank you, thank you. This conversation definitely will continue, and of course on Tamrini and after the 1 o'clock news. But let me appreciate Washington, Onyango watching from Seattle City, Ngetichu is watching from Kangemi, Yasa Said Mchangama watching from Comoros, watching from Macha is Baidi, and Wycliffe watching from Nyamira. Of course, they're watching it live on Facebook and of course on other media platform. Tamrini is coming up next. Thank you so much for joining us on this special news check. Remember, the head of state is expected to be addressing the country at about 2:30 p.m. live from Parliament. Keep it Channel 1. My name is Njue, and Byron Abuli has been our sign language interpreter for this afternoon.
Article 132 of the Constitution and House Standing Orders obligate the President of Kenya to address a joint sitting of the Houses on matters that touch on national values. The State of the Nation Address is an annual constitutional requirement where the President is accorded the opportunity to address the nation on all the measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of the national values. President Uhuru Kenyatta has in the past delivered the address between March and May. Last year, he gave the address on April 4th, where he briefed the nation on the progress his administration had made towards realizing his legacy-defining projects. He also dwelt on the war on graft, as well as the Building Bridges initiative. He pointed out further that there will be no turning back on devolution, as it was the answer to unequal development. This year's address had been delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. The first case of the virus was reported in the country in March. In this year's address, the head of state will likely take stock of the Big Four agenda. The President may also root for the Building Bridges initiative vehicle, which he believes will deliver equity and national unity. President Kenyatta will also report to Parliament the measures taken to achieve national values, progress in fulfillment of international obligations, and state of security. In their communication to the Houses on Tuesday, Speaker Justin Muturi and his counterpart, Kenneth Lusaka, said the House attendance will be in compliance with the social distancing directives by the Health Ministry.
Yote ndawai do iko tu sawa kwa macho yako.
Unataka kuwapo?
Ati nini?
Why are you people shouting?
Are you okay?
Mwanamke wewe ninakuona sana. Ni wanaume hapa Mombasa wameisha.
Ni nini mbaya? Nowadays we have so many unfaithful people.
What?
Need to talk about her every time we are together.
And be very careful the way you address me.
Zako zinakuangaje? Huwezi kaa dakika mbili hata bila kuteta.
You will all sign new contracts.
And I am supposed to be briefed.
What?
Sitaki ujinga.
Oof.